Welcome back to the Yawning Yeti, where bedtime comes easy and the mountains are always sleepy. Grab your blanket, get comfy, and let's drift off together. Previously, we began our journey through the ancient lands of Middle-earth, a realm of heroes, kings, and dark powers rising once again. From the peaceful hills of the Shire to the shadows of Mordor, we uncovered the beginnings of a tale that would shape the fate of all. But the story is far from over. In this chapter, alliances are tested, kingdoms awaken, and the darkness spreads further than ever before. This is Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Now we begin the next part of the story. This is still a long story. It takes place in the same land called Middle-earth. You already know Middle-earth now. You know the forests and mountains and rivers. You know about the Shire and about Mordor. You know about hobbits and elves and dwarves and men and wizards. You know about the One Ring. But the story has changed. The Fellowship is broken. Gandalf has fallen into the darkness under the mountain. Boromir has died with arrows in his chest. Merry and Pippin have been taken by enemies. Frodo and Sam have gone off alone toward Mordor. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli are running across the wild lands of the world, chasing orcs that run like wolves. This part of the tale is about all of them and how they keep going, even when it would be easier to lie down and stop. We will tell it gently. We will tell it slowly. You can rest inside the telling. We begin with Aragorn. Aragorn was a man, but not an ordinary man. He was taller than most and stronger than most. His hair was dark and fell past his shoulders. His face was weathered, the face of someone who had slept more nights under the sky than under a roof. He carried a sword, and that sword was very old. It was the reforged sword of kings. Even if Aragorn did not yet sit on any throne, that did not change what the sword meant. Legolas was beside him. Legolas was an elf. Elves did not tire the way men did. Elves could run for days and not seem winded. Elves could see farther than men and hear more quietly than men. Legolas could hear things on the wind that other people would never notice in a lifetime. His eyes were bright and sharp, and his steps were so light that even when he ran, he hardly bent the grass. Gimli was with them too. Gimli was a dwarf. Dwarves were not fast runners. Dwarves were not built for open plains. They were built for stone and echoing halls where you walk on solid ground and hear the tap of your own boots. But Gimli still ran. His beard bounced against his chest. His armor clinked softly. He muttered to himself about orcs and about what he was going to do to the orcs when he caught them. He was angry and also sad. He was thinking of Merry and Pippin, the two small hobbits who had been taken. He was also thinking of Gandalf, who had fallen. He still did not quite believe that Gandalf was gone. They ran across great stretches of land. These lands were called the Plains of Rohan. Rohan was a land of grass and wind. The hills there rolled like waves, and the grass was long and pale and moved in the breeze like the surface of the sea. There were very few trees and almost no shelter. It was a place made for horses. Aragorn could read tracks on the ground the way most people read letters on a page. He knelt. He touched the earth with his fingers. He looked at crushed blades of grass and at dirt that had been kicked out of place. He studied the signs that most people would never even see. And from these tiny changes, he could tell a story. He could tell how many orcs had gone by. He could tell how fast they had been moving. He could even tell when two smaller sets of footprints stepped wrong or stumbled, and he would know that those were Merry and Pippin being forced to run. "There," Aragorn would say quietly, pointing. "Merry walked here. He was pushed. He fell to his knees. He stood back up." And Gimli would growl and say, "Then we are not too late." And Legolas would listen to the wind and answer, "Not yet." They did not stop to sleep, not at first. They did not build a campfire. They did not cook any food. They chewed travel bread as they ran, and they drank what water they could find in streams. The sun rose, the sun fell, the stars came out overhead like bright needles of light. Still they ran. While they ran, they spoke in low voices. Gimli said, "It is not right that hobbits should be made to run like hunted animals. They are not built for that. They are built for gardens and meals and laughter." Aragorn said, "They were taken alive. That is something. Orcs that want meat to eat do not keep prisoners alive. These ones have a purpose." Legolas said, "Yes, they are taking them somewhere. They are not allowed to kill them yet. We must hope that the place they are going to is nearer than Mordor." Gimli huffed. "Hope is nice. Catching them would be nicer." And Aragorn allowed himself the tiniest smile. While these three chased the orcs across the plains of Rohan, something else was happening not very far away. We go now to Merry and Pippin. Merry and Pippin were hobbits from the Shire. They were not warriors. They were not wizards. They were not kings. They had never wanted to be part of a great war, but they had become part of one anyway. The orcs had captured them at the river after Boromir fell. The orcs had tied their hands and carried them like sacks. Orc hands were rough. Orc armor was sharp. Orc voices were harsh and full of anger. Orcs did not walk softly. They stomped and snarled and argued with each other all the time. Some of the orcs were from Mordor. Some of the orcs were from a place called Isengard. These two groups hated each other. Even while they were in the same troop, they bickered and threatened to cut each other's throats. The only reason they were staying together at all was because they had orders. The orcs from Isengard had orders from their master. The orcs from Mordor had orders from theirs, and the orders were strange. "Alive," one orc would snap. "Yes, alive," another would say. Yes, yes, we heard that part. But what if a leg comes off? Is that still alive?" The other would growl, "No, whole. We bring them whole. Do you want to be torn apart yourself if we fail?" And the first would grumble and spit. Merry and Pippin listened very closely to these arguments, because the arguments told them something. The orcs did not actually know which of the hobbits had the Ear ring. They only knew the halfling. But there were two halflings. Merry and Pippin looked very similar to people who did not understand hobbits. The orcs were not sure which one was the important one, and that meant something else. The orcs could not kill either of them. Not yet. Not until they knew which one the important one was supposed to be. That was an advantage, a small advantage, but still an advantage. Merry and Pippin whispered to each other whenever they could. They leaned close when the orcs were not paying attention. "Are you hurt?" Merry whispered. "Only everywhere," Pippin whispered back. Merry made a face. "I don't like being carried by orcs." "I don't either," Pippin said. "I don't like the smell of them either. I can taste it." Merry said quietly, "We're not dead yet." Pippin swallowed and nodded. That was the important part. Not dead yet. At one point, during a brief stop, an orc dropped its water flask. Pippin pretended to fall when he was being dragged. When he fell, he rolled. And when he rolled, his fingers found that water flask. He kept it. It was small and ugly and made of leather and string, but it was water. He hid it under his shirt. Little things can matter a lot. Later, when the orcs ran again, Pippin let the flask fall to the ground on purpose. It bounced in the grass. Aragorn would find it later. Aragorn would kneel and lift it and show it to Legolas and Gimli. And Aragorn would say, "This is from Pippin. He was here. He is alive." So even while Pippin was a prisoner, even when his hands were tied, he was still helping. That is important to remember. People can still fight even when it does not look like fighting. The orcs kept running and running. They drove Merry and Pippin forward. The sun went down. The moon came up. When Merry stumbled, an orc yanked him up by the back of his shirt. When Pippin staggered, an orc smacked him and hissed in his face. Orc breath was hot and smelled like rot. Pippin told himself he was back in the Shire, just for a moment. He told himself he was sitting at a table, legs up, drinking something warm, telling Merry a joke and waiting for dinner. He pretended he could hear plates and smell mushrooms. Sometimes pretending can keep you from falling apart. But eventually, the orcs had to stop. Even orcs can't run forever. They came to the edge of a great land of grass. Far off in the distance, Merry and Pippin could see a dark line, like a wall on the horizon. That dark line was a forest. They did not know it yet, but that forest would become very, very important. The orcs dropped into a rough camp. Merry and Pippin were thrown down. Their wrists were still tied. Their ankles were still tied. They lay on the ground, side by side. "Still alive," Merry whispered. "Barely," Pippin whispered back. "But yes." Merry rolled until his shoulder bumped Pippin's shoulder. "Listen, we're going to try something." Pippin let out a tiny laugh. "I was afraid you'd say that." When the orcs started arguing again, Merry and Pippin started wriggling. They twisted their wrists. They tried to pull their hands under their legs so that their wrists would be in front, not in back. It hurt. It burned. Pippin bit his lip so he wouldn't make a noise. Merry's face went red with effort. But slowly, they did it. Now their hands were tied in front of them instead of behind them. That was step one. Step two would have to wait. Now we go back to Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli. They had been running for days. On the third day, something changed. Aragorn stopped suddenly. He dropped into a crouch. His face tightened. "What is it?" Gimli asked. "Horsemen," Aragorn said softly. Legolas lifted his head. His keen eyes shone. "Yes," he said, "they are coming fast." Gimli pulled out his axe and said, very simply, "Good, I am ready for someone to try me." Aragorn shook his head. "Put the axe down, friend." "Not yet. These are the riders of Rohan." The riders of Rohan were men, but they were not like the men of cities. They did not wear heavy armor like tower guards. They did not carry banners like noble lords. They lived in a land of grass and horses. They slept in tents and wooden halls. They were wide-shouldered and sun-browned. Their hair was often long and pale like wheat. They could ride a horse as if they had been born in the saddle and had never stood on their own 2 feet in their lives. The 3 travelers waited. Over a rise in the land came many horses, dozens of them. The horses were strong and fast. The riders carried spears and long blades. Their cloaks streamed out behind them. Their hair streamed too. They circled Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli. "State your names," one of the riders demanded. This rider sat tallest of them all. He had sharp eyes and a proud face. His name was Aoma. He was a captain among the riders. He was important in Rohan, though he did not boast of it. Aragorn stood calmly. "I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn," he said. "This is Legolas of the Woodland Realm. This is Gimli, son of Glóin. We are friends of the people of Rohan. We hunt orcs." At the word orcs, the riders stirred. Their faces darkened. The horses tossed their heads and stamped the ground. Orcs had been raiding in Rohan. Orcs had been burning farms and hurting people. The riders of Rohan hated orcs. Éomer studied Aragorn. He did not trust easily. "You say you are hunting orcs," he said. "Then you hunt the same prey as we do. But I have not seen travelers like you in these lands. Why should we trust you?" Legolas answered in a clear voice, "Because if you were our enemies, you would already be dead. We saw you coming long before you saw us. We did not hide. We waited." The riders shifted again. Gimli crossed his arms and added, "Also, we are tired and angry, and have not had breakfast. And I promise you, if we were here to cause trouble, there would be shouting already." A few of the riders actually smiled at that. Aragorn did not smile. Aragorn spoke simply, plainly, like someone who has no time to play games. "Orcs came through here," he said. "They carried 2 small hobbits, one with hair like brown leaves, one with hair like summer straw. Have you seen them?" There was a quiet moment. The wind moved through the tall grass. A horse shook its mane. Éomer finally said, and his voice changed as he said it, "We did see orcs, a large band of them. They were running north and east. We followed. We rode them down. We slew them in the night. We killed them all." Gimli's eyes lit up. "All," he said. "All," Éomer repeated. "Did you find our friends?" Aragorn asked, and now there was a tightness in his own voice. He could not help it. Éomer looked at Aragorn, and something like softness entered his face. "We searched the bodies," he said. "We searched the field. We found no hobbits. Not alive, not dead." Aragorn let out a long, slow breath. Gimli let out something between a sigh and a growl. Legolas lifted his gaze toward the dark line of forest on the horizon. "Where did the orcs fall?" Aragorn asked. Éomer pointed. "Near the edge of that forest," he said. "Near the old trees. We do not go under those trees. That is the realm of the old wood. That place is not friendly to men. It is called Fangorn." Aragorn nodded. "Then that is where we go next." Éomer looked at him closely. "I should not allow you to roam our land without leave," he said. "But I think you are not my enemy. If any man here says you are his enemy, then he will taste my spear first, and you will taste it after." Gimli muttered, "That's very comforting, thank you." Then Éomer did something else. He gave Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli horses. Not their own horses. Rohan did not just give away horses. That was not their way. But Éomer lent them horses. One for Aragorn, one for Legolas and Gimli together, which Legolas thought was funny. Gimli complained that dwarves do not ride elves. Legolas said, "Then you can run, if you prefer." Gimli decided very quickly that perhaps dwarves could ride elves just this once. So the 3 companions rode to the edge of the forest called Fangorn. Now we must go ahead of them, because something important already happened there. We go back to Merry and Pippin. Night had passed. Dawn had come. The orcs were restless. They were arguing louder than before. They were frightened. That was new. Orcs did not usually get frightened in the open like this. Usually they bragged and stomped, but now they kept looking, again and again, at the dark trees ahead. That forest at the edge of the plain was old. Not old like a normal forest is old, with big trees and thick roots. Older, deeper, slower, heavier. It was the kind of old that feels like a memory you didn't know you had, sitting in your bones, looking up through branches that remember a time before the first stone wall, before the first tower, before the first iron nail. The orcs did not like that forest. Merry noticed this. Pippin noticed this too. And when your enemies are scared of something, and you are clever, you tug that away. Then suddenly there was shouting. Then suddenly there were horns. Not orc horns, rider horns. The men of Rohan had found the orcs. The world exploded. Horses charged in from the darkness before dawn. Blades flashed, spears struck. Orcs shrieked. Merry felt the ground shake with hooves. Pippin rolled and tried not to be trampled. He could not tell which way was safe. There was no safe. It was battle, and battle is confusion. And in this confusion, the ropes on their hands loosened, just a little. Pippin yanked. The rope slid. His hands were free. "Run," Merry gasped. "Run where?" Pippin cried. "Trees," Merry said. The two hobbits did something that looked very small and very simple. They ran. But this little act, that choice, would change the fates of entire kingdoms. They ran to the trees. They vanished into Fangorn Forest. The battle roared behind them. Orcs died. Riders shouted. Steel rang. But Merry and Pippin slipped between roots and under branches and disappeared from everyone's sight. They were breathing hard. Their hearts pounded. Their legs trembled with fear and exhaustion. But they were alive. They were finally alone. Pippin leaned against a great grey root and whispered, "Those were men on horses. Did you see them? Did you see all those horses? Merry, I think we're saved. I think those riders saved us." Merry leaned back too, panting. "Maybe," he said carefully. "If we're lucky." Pippin blinked. "We just escaped from orcs. How are we not lucky?" Merry swallowed. He looked at the forest around them. The forest was very quiet, too quiet. The air here was thick and deep and old. "Merry," Pippin whispered, "why is everything watching us?" Because that was what it felt like. The trees felt like watchers. The branches felt like arms. The leaves overhead whispered not like wind in leaves, but like voices deciding something. Merry stood very still. He was trying not to tremble. "Pippin," he whispered, "stay close to me. Don't shout. Don't run. Just be polite." "Be polite," Pippin whispered. "To trees?" "Yes," Merry said. "Exactly to trees." They looked up, and then the forest moved. What Merry and Pippin had first thought was only a cluster of old, twisted trunks began to shift. Roots pulled up from the ground like feet. Long arms unfolded from thick boughs. A face seemed to open where there had only been bark a moment ago. Deep-set eyes, a long mouth, and a beard made of hanging moss and twigs. It was a being, a living being. It was like a tree, but it was not just a tree. It was an ent. The ent looked down at them. Very slowly, very, very slowly. Ents did everything slowly. Time did not feel the same to them. Where a hobbit might think in meals and days, and a man might think in seasons and years, an ent thought in ages. The ent rumbled like stones sliding under deep earth. Pippin opened his mouth, and nothing came out at first. Merry pushed gently at Pippin's arm, a little warning. "Be polite." Pippin swallowed. Then, in his most respectful voice, he said, "Hello." The ent blinked once, slowly. "Hello," the ent repeated. "Whom? Little ones?" "Yes." very little. Hobbits. The Ent sounded the word carefully, as if he had not said it aloud in a long, long time. Hobbits were not common in deep old forests. Hobbits usually stayed in the Shire, and Ents usually stayed in their woods. Merry nodded. Yes, we are hobbits. My name is Meriadoc Brandybug, and this is Peregrine Took. We are very sorry to disturb you. We are only hiding. We will not hurt your trees. The Ent considered this. The Ent considered things the way mountains consider things, slowly, patiently, as if he had all the time in the world. Finally, the Ent said, I am called Treebeard. You are safe with me. Pippin let out a breath. He hadn't realized he was still holding. He sat down on a root so fast that he almost fell over. Treebeard knelt, if you can call it kneeling. His great body bent, his branchy arms lowered. He was huge. He could have picked up both hobbits in one hand. In fact, he did. Treebeard gently scooped Merry and Pippin up, one in each hand, like a gardener lifting two small animals out of the path. He raised them up so he could see them better. Merry said quietly, We are not orcs. Treebeard made a deep sound, something like a laugh mixed with a cough. He said. I can see that. No, not orcs. Orcs are rude. Orcs bite. Orcs are meat wasters. You are not orcs. Pippin dared a tiny smile. No, he said. We are definitely not meat wasters. Treebeard looked at them a little longer, and there was an old gentle sadness in his eyes. He carried them deeper into the forest, stepping slowly, roots curling and uncurling like careful toes. As they went, Pippin whispered, Merry, this is all right. We are safe. We're safe now, aren't we? Merry looked around. He looked at the deep green shadows. He looked at the slow, thoughtful Ent who was carrying them. He listened to the forest, which was creaking and murmuring all around them, like a room full of elders talking quietly. And Merry said, I don't know yet, but I think we've just met someone important. They had. Treebeard was the oldest living thing that still walked in Middle-earth. He had seen ages pass. He had watched mountains wear down and rivers change their beds. When Treebeard spoke, it mattered. Treebeard carried Merry and Pippin to his home. His home was not like a hobbit hole. It was not snug and round and warm. It was not like a dwarf hall full of carvings and stonework. It was more like a hollow in the forest itself, with a tall roof of living branches and a floor of soft moss and shallow pools of cool water. Everything smelled of green things and rain. Treebeard set them down. He looked at them for a long time. Then, finally, he asked, Why are you running in my woods, little hobbits? Merry and Pippin told him. They told him about the Shire. They told him about the ring, though they did not say everything, because some things were not theirs to give away. They told him about the fellowship. They told him about the mines under the mountains and about Moria. They told him about Gandalf, and Treebeard's eyes grew dim and sad at that name. They told him about the orcs. They told him about being captured and dragged across the plains. They told him about how the orcs had mentioned Isengard. Treebeard made a low, angry sound when they said that word. Isengard, Treebeard rumbled, and his deep voice filled the grove like thunder rolling. Saruman. Pippin blinked. You know Saruman. Treebeard's eyes darkened, like clouds gathering. I knew him, Treebeard said. Yes. Whom? Saruman the White. He walked in my woods. He spoke many words. Too many words. Always talking. Always bending. But Saruman is not white anymore. Saruman has a mind of gears and knives now. Saruman cuts. Saruman burns. Saruman fells my trees. Treebeard's great hands clenched slowly. The moss on the ground trembled under his toes. Merry and Pippin listened quietly. They felt something then. They realized that the forest was angry. Not just Treebeard, the forest. They had never thought that trees could be angry. They had never thought that a forest could feel like a living nation. But that is exactly what it felt like now. Treebeard leaned closer. "You two are not orcs," he said again. "You are not liars. I will think on what you have told me, but I will tell you something in return." Merry nodded. Pippin nodded. Treebeard said, "I think Saruman is no longer just a wizard in a tower. I think Saruman is a machine now. I think Saruman is making more orcs. I think Saruman is cutting down my trees to feed his fires. I think Saruman believes that nothing living matters except his own plans. And I do not like that," Merry said softly. "Then someone will have to stop him." Treebeard's eyes flashed in a slow, old way. "Whom?" Treebeard said. "Yes, someone will." Now we go back to Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli. They reached the same forest. Fangorn. They left the horses behind because horses did not like it there. Horses rolled their eyes and stamped and would not go forward. Aragorn stroked the neck of his horse and whispered to it in a soft voice, telling it to wait. The three companions slipped under the trees. Inside Fangorn, it felt cooler and darker than it should have, even in daylight. The air smelled like old leaves and quiet rain. The branches were so big they made archways. Moss hung down like long green curtains. You could almost believe you were walking inside the memory of the world, not the world itself. Gimli muttered, very softly, "I do not like this." Legolas whispered back, "I do like it, but it does not like you." "Comforting," Gimli said again. Aragorn did not answer. He was looking at the ground. He was searching for footprints again. He found them. He found small hobbit prints. And here and there he found larger, heavier prints shaped like the bottoms of trees. He frowned at that. He did not understand that yet. Then, all at once, Legolas straightened. He stared ahead. His eyes went wide. "Something is here," he whispered. Gimli gripped his axe. "What?" And then, from the shadows, someone stepped forward. It was an old man in grey. He was hooded. His beard was long. His hands held a staff. The staff gleamed faintly, like it remembered starlight even here under the trees. Gimli gasped. "Gandalf," he whispered. The old man did not answer at first. Aragorn took one slow step forward. His eyes burned. His voice shook like someone who cannot bear to hope, but cannot help hoping anyway. "Gandalf," he whispered too. The old man lifted his head. The hood fell back. His hair shone white, as if it held its own light. His eyes were clear and bright, brighter than before, brighter than any firelight in any tavern or hall. He looked like Gandalf, and also like more than Gandalf. "Yes," the old man said softly, "I was Gandalf." Legolas dropped to one knee, hands pressed to his chest in awe. Gimli stumbled backward and sat down very suddenly on a root. Aragorn closed his eyes for a moment, like someone who had been holding his breath for days and let that breath go. The old man smiled. It was a tired smile, but kind and familiar. "I fell," he said quietly. "I fell with the Balrog into the deep places of the world. I fought it in fire and in water. I followed it through stone and through shadow. At the end, I cast it down upon the mountain peak. And then I was spent. I was at the end of my strength. I passed out of thought and time. But I was not sent away." He lifted his hand, and the light in his staff grew a little brighter. The shadows of Fangorn shrank back from it. "I have been sent back," he said, "until my task is done." Gimli managed in a choked little voice, "You look different." The old man's smile warmed. "Yes," he said, "I am Gandalf, but I am also Gandalf the White now, and there is much to do." Aragorn breathed. "Gandalf." Gandalf nodded. "Yes. Now listen. We have little time and much to mend. The hobbits you seek are alive. Merry and Pippin are in Fangorn. They are with someone safer than you can even imagine. They are with Treebeard. You do not need to worry for them now. Your feet must turn another way." Gimli blinked, but Gandalf raised one hand. "No, Merry and Pippin are safe for now, but another war is moving. Saruman is building an army in Isengard. He plans to wipe out the Horse Lords of Rohan next. If he does that, the whole West will fall in fire. We must go to Rohan. We must speak to its king." Aragorn frowned. "The king of Rohan," he said. "You mean Theoden?" "Yes," Gandalf said. "Theoden, son of Thengel. He sits in his golden hall in a place called Edoras. But he is not ruling as a king should. His mind has been clouded. His strength is being stolen. He is being whispered to by the wrong tongue." Legolas narrowed his eyes. "Saruman?" "Not directly," Gandalf said. "Saruman works by crooked roads now. He uses others to do his poisoning. One such is sitting in the king's hall at this very moment." Gandalf's eyes flashed, and for a moment, something in him looked dangerous, like lightning behind a mountain. "We will remove him." Gimli stood. He brushed moss from himself. He picked up his axe. "Good," he said. "That sounds like something I will enjoy." Gandalf laughed, soft and bright. "Yes," he said, "I think you will." So they turned away from Fangorn. They turned away from Merry and Pippin, trusting them to Treebeard. That was not easy, but it was necessary. Now we go back inside Fangorn, to Merry, Pippin, and Treebeard. Treebeard had made a decision. That was a rare thing. Ents did not make decisions quickly. Ents thought, Ents considered, Ents discussed. For an Ent to decide something in even a handful of hours was like a human deciding something in a heartbeat. But Treebeard was angry. And this is what he decided. He decided to call an Entmoot. An Entmoot was an Ent meeting. All the Ents of Fangorn would gather in one place. They would stand together under the trees and they would talk. This sounds simple, but for Ents, talking is not like talking for anyone else. Ents speak slowly and carefully. They do not waste words. They do not rush to judgment. They do not forget anything. When Ents meet, it is like mountains meeting. It is like rivers speaking to each other. Treebeard carried Merry and Pippin to a place of old stumps and soft earth and dappled light. Other Ents came there, one by one. They were all different. Some looked like beech trees. Some looked like birch. Some looked like oaks, with heavy arms and thick fingers. One was smooth and silver and very tall. One was wide and knotted and had moss growing in his beard like a blanket. They came walking slowly, and when they stopped, the ground itself seemed to sigh and settle. Merry and Pippin sat together, very small at the roots of a tree. They watched with wide eyes. Pippin whispered, They're amazing." Merry nodded. He felt tiny, but not insulted. Just tiny, the way a candle is tiny next to the sun. Treebeard began to speak. He told the story. He told the Ents about Saruman. He told them about orcs in Fangorn. He told them about trees being killed, trees being cut down not for food or warmth, but for feeding furnaces, for making weapons, for war. When Treebeard used the word murdered, The air in the Entmoot went still and heavy. The other Ents made deep, groaning sounds. Some of them shifted. You could hear creaks, like wood under pressure. Treebeard spoke for a long time. The Ents listened for a long time. They talked. They talked through the day. They talked into the night. They talked the next morning. Sometimes Pippin dozed off, leaning against Merry's shoulder, and Merry would doze off, leaning against Pippin's. They slept like two little birds tucked under a branch. When they woke, the Ents were still talking, still thinking. Finally, when the sun was high again and the light was golden under the branches, Treebeard came back to them. His eyes were different now. Before, his eyes had been sad and thoughtful. Now they were sad and angry. Treebeard knelt. "We have finished our talk," he said. Pippin rubbed his eyes. "What did you decide?" he asked softly. Treebeard said, and his voice had a new weight in it, "We have decided to go to war." Pippin's mouth fell open. Merry sat straight up. "The Ents are going to war," he said in a tiny voice. "Yes," Treebeard said. "Whom? Yes. It is not our way to rush. It is not our way to meddle in the wars of others. We have stood for long ages and watched the world change around us. But Saruman has brought his war into our own roots. He cuts and burns and feeds his fires with our friends. He thinks trees cannot fight back. He is wrong." When Treebeard said the word wrong, leaves rustled all around the clearing, though there was no breeze. Pippin swallowed. "What will you do?" Treebeard stood to his full height. When he did, he seemed taller than any tower. He lifted one vast arm and pointed south. "To Isengard," he said. Isengard was a ring of stone walls and pits and forges. It was a place where Saruman had made himself strong. There was a black tower there, tall and cruel. Smoke poured out of Isengard now, day and night. The smoke smelled like burning wood, because that is exactly what it was. It was Fangorn's own trees, cut down, chopped up, and thrown into fires to make metal for war. Treebeard began to walk, and all around him the other Ents walked too. It was slow, it was steady, it was heavy, but it was also unstoppable. Imagine an entire forest getting up and walking. Imagine roots pulling free of the dirt. Imagine trunks bending and straightening and moving forward like legs. Imagine branches like arms and fingers like clubs. That is what it looked like. It was as if the old woods themselves had come to life and decided they had had enough. Merry and Pippin rode on Treebeard's shoulders, one on each side, holding on to the moss of his beard to steady themselves. Pippin leaned over and whispered to Merry, "We're going to see a wizard." Merry whispered back, "I think the wizard is about to have a very bad day. Now we go with Gandalf, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli to Rohan." They rode hard toward a city of low houses and a single high hall at the top of a hill. This place was called Edoras. At the top of Edoras was a hall with a thatched roof of golden straw that shone in the sun. That hall was Meduseld, the Golden Hall, where the king of Rohan sat. But the king of Rohan, Theoden, was not well. When Gandalf and the others arrived, guards tried to turn them away. Gandalf looked at the guards with calm eyes. "I am Gandalf," he said. "I am here to speak to your king." One of the guards frowned. "The king is not to be disturbed." Gandalf stepped forward. "He will be disturbed," he said. His voice was still gentle, but it went through the air like a bell. "He has been asleep too long." They entered the hall. Inside it was dim. Firelight flickered on carved pillars. Shields hung on the walls. Spears leaned in corners. Animal skins lay on the floor. It should have felt alive and warm. It should have felt like a place of warriors and laughter and songs. But it did not feel that way now. Now the hall felt heavy and tired and stale, like a house that had been closed for too long. At the far end, on a high seat, sat King Theoden. He was an old man, but he should not have looked as old as he did. He was slumped, like his bones were too heavy for him. His hair was white and thin. His eyes were dull and filmed over, like someone looking through smoke. He looked like someone who had forgotten his own name. Standing near the king was another man. This man was pale and thin and had dark hair that hung lank around his pointed face. His eyes were sharp and ugly, like little wet stones. His shoulders were soft. His hands were soft. His mouth was soft. But his voice was not. His voice was slippery. His name was Grimmer. People called him Wormtongue. Wormtongue spoke for the king, even when the king should have spoken for himself. When Gandalf came in, Wormtongue smiled in a way that did not reach his eyes. "Oh," he said. "Old man, you were told you were not welcome here." Gimli tightened his grip on his axe. Legolas's hand drifted to his bow. Aragorn's jaw clenched. Gandalf did not even look at Wormtongue. Gandalf walked straight to the king. He stood before King Theoden. He spoke softly, like he would speak to someone caught in a bad dream. "Theoden, son of Thengel," Gandalf said, "too long have you sat in shadow." The king stared at nothing. Wormtongue laughed. "He cannot hear you," he whispered. "Your words have no power here." Gandalf turned his head. This time, his eyes met Wormtongue's eyes. When Gandalf wanted to, his gaze could feel like sunlight suddenly pouring into a dark cellar. "Be silent," Gandalf said. Wormtongue flinched. Then Gandalf lifted his staff. "Theoden," Gandalf said again, louder now. "Listen to me. I'm going to show you the truth." Wormtongue cried out, "No!" and tried to rush forward, but Aragorn and Gimli and Legolas all moved at once. Aragorn stepped in his way. Gimli blocked with his axe. Legolas had an arrow nocked and drawn in less than a heartbeat, aimed at Wormtongue's throat. Wormtongue froze. Gandalf took the tip of his staff and struck it, very gently, against the floor. There was a sound like wind. There was a light like dawn. It was not harsh. It was not violent. It was like fresh air moving through a room that had been shut up too long. It was like opening a window and letting the world back in. That light washed over Theoden. The old king shuddered. He blinked. He blinked again, faster this time. His eyes cleared. The cloudy film went away. His back straightened, just a little. He looked at his own hands, like he did not recognize them. Then, slowly, shakily, he lifted his gaze and looked at Gandalf. "Gandalf," he whispered. Gandalf smiled. "Yes," he said. Theoden drew in a breath. It sounded like the first real breath he had taken in weeks, maybe months. His face changed as he breathed. The deep tiredness in it began to ease. Color began to come back to his cheeks. He looked around his hall, and then his eyes settled on Wormtongue. At first, there was confusion in his face. Then there was understanding. Then there was anger. Wormtongue took a small step back. "My lord," Wormtongue said quickly, with that same slippery voice. "You are unwell. You should lie back. You should not—" "Be silent," Theoden said. His voice was still rough, but it was his voice now, his own. Wormtongue took another step back. Theoden stood up. He rose slowly, because his body still remembered weakness, but he stood. When he stood, you could see what he had been before all this. a king of horse lords, strong and proud and brave, a rider of the plains, a lord of his people. He reached out his hand. "Where is my sword?" he asked. For a moment, no one moved. Then one of the guards hurried to bring him his blade. When Theoden's hand closed around the hilt, something in him seemed to settle. The sword fit his hand like it had always belonged there. He lifted it. He felt its weight. He nodded. Then he looked at Wormtongue. "Grima," he said quietly, "you have eaten my food. You have sat in my hall. You have whispered poison in my ear. You have told me to sit in darkness while my people bled and burned. You have told me to be afraid. You have told me to do nothing." Wormtongue swallowed. "My lord, I only ever wanted—" Theoden's eyes flashed. "Out," he said. Wormtongue stared. "What? Out," Theoden repeated, louder this time, stronger. "Get out of my hall. Get out of my sight. Get out of my land. If you are still in Rohan by nightfall, you will not see the morning. Do you understand me?" Wormtongue looked around wildly, as if he expected someone to rescue him. No one moved. Legolas still had an arrow ready. Gimli still had his axe ready. Aragorn still looked like someone who would not mind tossing Grima down the long, long stairs outside the hall. Wormtongue ran. He stumbled out of the hall and down the steps of Meduseld and out of Edoras. He fled across the plains like a pale rat. Theoden watched him go. Then Theoden turned to Gandalf. He put his hand on Gandalf's shoulder. "Thank you," he said. Gandalf nodded. "There is no time to thank me," he said. "Saruman is coming. He has armies. He will strike you soon." Theoden lifted his chin. "Then we will ride," he said. And just like that, the king of Rohan began to wake his people for war. The horns of Rohan were blown. The riders gathered. Saddles were thrown onto horses. Spears were lifted. Armor was buckled. The Golden Hall was no longer quiet and stale. It was alive now. Men were shouting and laughing like men who had been given themselves back. Women were running with bundles of arrows and fresh cloaks. Children were moved to safety. Elders were helped up into wagons. The whole city began to move. Theoden walked among his people. He was still stiff. His hair was still white. But his eyes were clear. He spoke to his captains. He gave orders. He told them where to gather, where to ride, where to fall back. "Fall back?" Aragorn asked softly at his side. Theoden nodded. "Yes," he said. "We cannot hold Edoras against an army of Isengard. Saruman has made too many orcs. He breeds them in pits like maggots. We are not ready to meet him in the open field today. We will fall back to the Hornburg. We will fall back to Helm's Deep." Aragorn nodded. He understood. Sometimes the bravest choice is not to stand and die in a place you cannot keep. Sometimes the bravest choice is to retreat to a place you can defend and draw your enemy there and hold. Now we go back to Merry and Pippin, who are still riding on Treebeard's shoulders. They are moving toward Isengard. The closer they get to Isengard, the uglier the land becomes. The forest thins out. The trees are not trees anymore. They are stumps. Great stumps, torn and hacked and left to rot. The ground is bare and muddy. Black smoke hangs in the air. There are pits in the earth. The pits are lit from below with red light, like the mouths of furnaces. You can hear metal clanging. You can hear chains. You can hear orcs shouting. Pippin covers his nose. "It smells like burning," he whispers. Merry nods. "Yes, burning and poison." Treebeard stops at the edge of this scarred land. He looks out over it. His face changes. The sadness in his face becomes anger. The anger becomes something that is almost grief. They have killed them, Treebeard says. His voice shakes. They have killed the trees that could not run. They have killed the trees that could not hide. My friends are dead. Merry and Pippin feel very, very small then. They feel small, and they feel angry with Treebeard. Not angry at Treebeard, angry with him, angry together beside him. Pippin says softly, "Then make them pay." Treebeard nods once, slowly. "Yes," he says. "Yes. Whom? We will." Then he lifts his head and lets out a sound that Merry and Pippin will remember for the rest of their lives. It is not a shout like a man would shout. It is not a howl like a wolf would howl. It is something deeper. It is like a mountain groaning. It is like a river in flood. It is like roots breaking stone. And the Ents answer. From the shadows behind them, more great shapes step forward. Ents, dozens of them, maybe more than dozens. It is hard to count. You can't count a forest easily. They begin to march. They march toward Isengard. Now we go back to Rohan. The people of Rohan are riding to a place called Helm's Deep. Helm's Deep is a valley in the mountains. At the mouth of the valley there is a great wall of stone, and inside that wall there is a fortress called the Hornburg. It is an old stronghold. The people of Rohan have always known that if the world turned against them, they could hide there and be safe. The riders gallop toward Helm's Deep. Rain begins to fall. The clouds grow dark. Thunder rolls in the distance. The air smells of storm. Women and children are herded inside. Old men, boys, and anyone who can hold a spear is given one and told where to stand. The main army gathers on the wall, shields ready. Theoden stands on the wall. His cloak is wet with rain. His hair is wet. His sword is in his hand. Aragorn stands next to him. So does Legolas. So does Gimli. They are soaked too. They do not care. None of them care. They can see torches in the distance now. So many torches. A line of fire moving through the night and the rain. That is Saruman's army. It is huge. There are too many to count. These are not only ordinary orcs. These are a new kind, bred in pits and made for war, made to march in daylight, made to obey without question. They wear black helmets and carry blades that look cruel and heavy. They march in lines. They pound drums. They chant. Their voices fill the valley like a dark wave. Gimli peers over the wall. He has to jump a little to see, because he is shorter than the others. "Well," he mutters, "there's a lot of them." Legolas smiles, just a little. "Do you want me to get you a box to stand on?" He teases softly. Gimli snorts. "No," he says, "and if you say that again, I'll toss you off this wall myself, elf." Legolas's smile gets a little wider. Even here, on the edge of battle, they tease each other. That is how they hold back fear. Aragorn turns to Theoden. "Show them no weakness," he says quietly. "Your people are watching you. If you stand, they will stand. If you fall in spirit, they will fall in spirit." Theoden nods once. He steps forward. He raises his sword high. His voice rings out, strong and clear, across the wall, over the rain, above the thunder. "Men of Rohan," he calls, "will you stand with me?" The answering shout from his people is loud. It echoes in the stone. It shakes the air. The sound of it is like a flame catching. Theoden lowers his sword. He looks at Aragorn and smiles a tired, fierce smile. "They still answer," he says softly. Aragorn says, "They always would. They only needed to hear you ask." Lightning cracks across the sky. The first arrows fly. The battle begins. Saruman's army surges forward like a black tide. They slam into the wall. Ladders are thrown up against the stone. Saruman's creatures pound at the gate with a giant battering ram. The air is full of shouts and screams and metal. Gimli laughs as he fights. He counts every enemy he fells. "That's one," he calls. "Two, three." Legolas looses arrows so fast it looks like rain shooting upward. "Four," he answers calmly. "Five, 6, 7, Gimli yells, chopping with his axe. 8. "Already at 11, Legolas says mildly. Gimli snorts. "Show off." Aragorn is everywhere at once. He moves along the wall, helping where it is weakest. He pulls men back to their feet. He pushes enemies off the battlements. He shouts orders when there is no time for anyone to think. He is like a bright flame that will not go out, even in the rain. But the battle is not easy. Saruman's army is strong. They do not fear pain. They do not fall back. They throw themselves against the wall again and again. And slowly, stone begins to crack. At one point, there is an explosion at the wall. A part of the deepening wall breaks. The enemy pours through the gap like water from a broken dam. Aragorn and Gimli race to that place. They fight shoulder to shoulder. Gimli laughs wildly and says, "Not bad for a dwarf and a man." Aragorn is too busy swinging his sword to answer, but he grins through his soaked hair. Still, it looks bad. There are too many enemies. There are not enough defenders. The night feels very long. Theoden stands in the Hornburg. He looks tired. He looks older than he did a few hours ago. He says quietly, "So this is how it ends. Alone. Surrounded." Aragorn shakes his head. "No," he says. "No, not alone." Theoden looks at him. "What hope do we have?" he asks, and Aragorn says, "Dawn." Theoden frowns. "Dawn? Look to the east at dawn," Aragorn says. "Trust me." Theoden takes a slow breath. He nods. "Then we make it to dawn," he says. And so they fight. They fight in the dark. They fight in the rain. They fight on the walls and in the courtyard and in the narrow passages. They fight with swords and spears and axes. They fight with their last bits of strength. When they are too tired to stand, they lean on each other and stand. Anyway, high above, clouds boil across the sky. Rain slashes down. Lightning flashes. And at last, finally, the east begins to pale. Morning is coming. Dawn is coming. The first thin light of morning touches the tops of the cliffs. And that is when they hear it. They hear a horn. Not an orc horn. A clear horn. A horn of Rohan. The sound echoes in the valley like silver. Theoden lifts his head. Aragorn runs to the wall and looks out. And there, in the pale light of morning, on the ridge above the valley, riders appear. They are riders of Rohan. At their head, on a tall horse, rides a white figure. White horse, white staff, white light. Gandalf. Gandalf has come, and he has not come alone. He has brought help. He has brought new riders, and they charge down the slope like sunlight pouring into darkness. They crash into Saruman's army from the side. They strike like a hammer. The black tide breaks. Orcs scream. The battle turns, and then it shatters. Saruman's army begins to fall apart, pushed between the walls of Helm's Deep and the riders from the ridge. There is nowhere for them to go. Some try to flee. Many fall. The rest break and scatter. The siege is lifted. Helm's Deep stands. Rohan stands. Theoden is alive. Gimli sits down on a fallen block of stone and leans back, panting. "Ha," he says, between breaths. "Ha ha ha, ha." Legolas walks over and sits next to him, still graceful even after hours of fighting. 42, Legolas says. Gimli wheezes. 43. Legolas smiles. "Then we shall call it a draw." Gimli grins. "Agreed." Aragorn stands in the morning light, with rain still dripping from his hair and armor. He looks at Gandalf. You came, he says quietly. Gandalf smiles, and the lines in his face are gentle again. Of course, he says. Theoden walks among his people. He puts his hand on their shoulders. He speaks soft words. He tells them they fought bravely. He thanks them by name. He is a king again. And while this battle is ending, something else is happening far to the south. We return to Treebeard and the Ents. They have arrived at Isengard. Isengard, which was once a place of wisdom, is now a place of smoke and iron. There are pits full of fire. There are wheels turning. There are furnaces roaring. There are orcs everywhere. Treebeard looks at Isengard, and something inside him breaks. Whom? He says. Then he roars. It is the roar of stone. It is the roar of earth. It is the roar of roots ripping loose. The Ents charge. Yes, charge. Slow things can still have power when they decide to move. They tear down the outer works of Isengard. They rip up machines. They smash the wooden towers that have been built around the pits. They pick up orcs like toys and hurl them away. They stomp them underfoot. Fire spills, water spills. The ground shakes. One Ent catches fire. His bark smoulders. He waves his arms and staggers, in pain. Merry and Pippin cry out, "Water! Water!" Treebeard hears, Treebeard calls. The Ents turn to the river. They break the dikes and dams that Saruman built. The river, which had been choked off and trapped, is suddenly free again. Water pours back into Isengard. The pits flood. The furnaces hiss and go dark. The fire on the burning Ent is put out. He sighs like a storm blowing away. The circle of Isengard begins to fill with water, deep and churning. The forges drown. The wheels stop. Saruman's war-making heart is being torn out and soaked. Saruman himself stands high in his black tower. The tower is called Orthanc. He looks down. He sees the forest marching. He sees his works being destroyed. For the first time in a very long time, Saruman looks afraid. Treebeard wades through the rising water. Merry and Pippin cling to his shoulders, eyes wide. They are shaking, but not from fear of Treebeard, from the size of what they are seeing, from the size of what they are part of. Pippin whispers, "Merry." "Yes," Merry whispers back. "Are we in a story?" Pippin asks. Merry nods slowly. "Yes," he whispers, "a big one." Pippin thinks about that for a moment. Then he says, "Good." Treebeard looks up at Saruman's tower. His eyes are deep and shining, like old wells. He calls up, "Saruman." Saruman does not answer. Treebeard calls again, louder, "Saruman." Finally, Saruman appears on a high balcony. His robes are white, but not clean white, not true white. They shine like a blade. They do not glow like starlight. He looks down with anger and fear mixed together. Treebeard says, in a voice that is slow and terrible and full of old grief, "Your fires are out. Your machines are broken. Your pits are full of water. You will no longer cut my trees. This is finished." Saruman hisses down. "You do not understand power, old tree." Treebeard blinks once. "I am older than your tower," he says. "I remember when this valley was green. I remember when the first stone of that tower was laid. I remember when you came here and your voice was honey and you said you loved growing things. I remember. I do not forget. You forget. That is your weakness. You forget that other things are alive besides you." Saruman's eyes flash. He turns and vanishes back into his tower like a snake slipping into a crack. Treebeard looks down at Merry and Pippin. He says, very calmly, "He will not leave that tower now. He is trapped." Merry lets out a slow breath. "That is good," he says softly. Treebeard nods. "Yes," he says, "it is good. Whom? Yes, very good. Merry looks around. Treebeard? He asks. Yes, little Merry. Treebeard says. What do we do now? Merry asks. Treebeard considers. He looks at the flooded ruin around him. He looks at the half-drowned fires. He looks at the broken wheels. He looks at the dark tower. Then he answers in his steady voice. Now, he says. We wait. We watch. We make sure he does not get out. And we let the water wash away the poison. Pippin smiles sleepily. That sounds nice, he says. Treebeard lifts them down from his shoulders and sets them on a high bit of stone where their feet will be dry and warm. You two will rest now, he says. You have walked far. You have done brave things. You will sit and be quiet and eat something. I will find you food. Pippin brightens. Food. Of course, Treebeard says. I'm not an orc. Merry laughs softly at that. Pippin leans back against a warm stone, and his eyes start to close almost at once. Merry looks at his friend. He looks at the slow, steady Ents who are still moving through the water like living towers. He looks at Saruman's high black tower. He looks at the sunlight beginning to break through the smoke. And Merry thinks, we are still alive. Somehow, we are still alive. Now, for a moment, we go back to Frodo and Sam. Because while all of this is happening, while Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, Gandalf, and Theoden stand in Helm's Deep, and while Treebeard and the Ents drown Isengard, Frodo and Sam are somewhere else entirely. They are not in a hall or a fortress or a forest. They are on a long, lonely road, moving slowly toward the dark land called Mordor. They do not have horses. They do not have an army. They do not have a wizard. They have each other. Frodo walks with his head down. The ring hangs on a chain around his neck, under his shirt. The ring feels heavier every day. He touches it sometimes, without meaning to. He does not like that he does that. It scares him, quietly, in places inside himself he does not talk about. Sam walks beside him. Sam carries the cooking gear. Sam carries the rope. Sam carries extra water. Sam does not complain. Sam watches Frodo with steady eyes. Mr. Frodo, Sam says softly after a while. Yes, Sam, Frodo says. His voice is tired. We'll get there, Sam says. Frodo closes his eyes. I hope so, he whispers. Sam nods. We will, he says. We will, because we have to. Frodo lets out a tiny laugh. That's not much of a plan, he says. Sam smiles, just a little. It's the only plan that's left, he says. They walk, they rest, they walk. Sometimes they hide during daylight and travel at night. Sometimes they curl up in thorny bushes and sleep without a fire, because a fire might be seen. Sometimes Sam tells Frodo stories of the Shire in a quiet voice, to keep Frodo from slipping too far inside the ring's shadow. He talks about mushrooms and gardens and ale. He talks about warm mornings and laundry on lines and sun on green grass. He talks about things that are soft and real and homely. He does this on purpose. He is giving Frodo little lanterns to hold inside himself. Sam is very wise in that way. Then one night, something begins following them. It moves in the dark. It crawls and slinks. It climbs down rocks like a spider. It makes little wet, whispering sounds. It has pale eyes that shine in the starlight. Frodo and Sam notice it. Sam whispers, "It's been behind us for 2 nights now." Frodo nods. "Yes," he says. "I know who it is." Sam frowns. "Who?" Frodo whispers. "Gollum. You remember Gollum? Long ago his name was Smeagol, before the ring twisted him. He lived in dark caves. He called the ring precious. He loved it. He hated it. He lost it. Bilbo found it. Now Gollum wants it back." Gollum follows Frodo and Sam across rocks and marshes and old bent hills. He mutters to himself. He talks to himself. He argues with himself in whispers. Sometimes he sounds like two different people fighting inside one body. We must get it back, he hisses. No, he whispers back to himself. We can help them, yes. Help them, yes. We will be good. They will hurt us. They will trick us. Nasty hobbitses. Thieves. Not thieves, the softer voice whispers. Friends. Friends, maybe. Liar, the harsh voice hisses. On and on, he mutters and argues and follows and creeps. Finally, Sam has had enough. Sam sets a trap with their rope. Gollum walks right into it. Suddenly, there is a shout and a tangle and a thrashing pale shape on the ground, hissing and fighting and clawing. Sam leaps forward. Got you, he shouts. Sam, Frodo says sharply. Don't hurt him. Sam blinks. Don't hurt him. Mr. Frodo, begging your pardon, but he's been following us for 2 nights, and I think he means to strangle us in our sleep. Gollum hisses from the rope. No, not strangle, not hurts, just watches, just follows. Yes, helps. Sam snorts. Helps, oh that's rich. But Frodo kneels down beside Gollum. He looks into those pale, frightened, angry eyes. He sees something there. He sees greed, yes. He sees danger, yes. But he also sees loneliness, terrible loneliness, centuries of loneliness, centuries of hunger and fear and hurt. Frodo speaks softly. Sméagol, he says. Gollum freezes. No one has called him that in a very, very long time. Sméagol, Frodo says again, even more gently. We will not hurt you, but you must not hurt us. Do you understand? You must promise. Gollum trembles. His eyes flicker. One moment he looks wild and furious. The next he looks like something small and sad and lost. Promise, Frodo asks. Gollum licks his lips. We promises, he whispers. Yes, we promises. Nice hobbit, kind hobbit, we helps. Sam mutters. I don't like this. I don't like this a one bit. Frodo says quietly. I know, Sam, but we need a guide. We don't know the way into Mordor. He does. Sam sighs. Sam does not trust Gollum. Sam will never trust Gollum. But Sam trusts Frodo. So Sam lets it be. They untie Gollum. Gollum rubs his wrists and hisses softly to himself. Good hobbits, he whispers. Nice hobbits, we helps. Frodo nods. You will lead us to Mordor, he says. You will help us get in. You will show us a way that is not guarded. Gollum shivers. He hugs himself with his long, thin arms. Yes, he whispers. We knows paths. We knows secret paths. We will shows you, but not the Black Gate. No. Too many eyes there. Oh yes, too many. We knows another way. Yes, secret stairs. We will shows you. Yes. Frodo nods. Good, he says softly. Then we go together. Sam watches Gollum with narrow eyes. If you try anything, he says, I will be on you before you can blink. Do you understand me? Gollum hisses. Nasty, he mutters under his breath. Suspicious, fat hobbit. Sam bristles. Who are you calling fat? Frodo almost laughs, just a little. It feels almost like being back in the Shire, just for a heartbeat. Then the weight of the ring tugs at him again, and the laughter goes away. So now, we have many paths. We have Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, Gandalf, and King Theoden, who have won at Helm's Deep. They stand in the dawn light, breathing hard but alive. They know that Saruman is still out there, but now they also know he is not unstoppable. We had Treebeard and the Ents, who have flooded Isengard and trapped Saruman in his tower. They have shown that the world is not made only of cities and armies. The deep, old things have power too. We have Merry and Pippin, who sit safe and tired above the waters of Isengard. They have done more than anyone expected hobbits could do. They have brought the anger of the forest down upon a wizard, and we have Frodo and Sam, who walk toward Mordor guided by Gollum, step by step, mile by mile, into the heart of darkness, carrying the smallest and most dangerous thing in all the world. All of these paths are part of the same story. They do not look the same. One path is full of armies and trumpets and banners in the rain. One path is full of roots and water and trees moving like giants. One path is only two small hobbits and one thin whispering creature creeping across lonely rocks under a silent sky. But they are all part of the same fight. All of them are trying to stop the same darkness. All of them are trying in their own way to give Middle-earth a future. And that is where we will pause. Not end, pause. Because the war is not over yet. Saruman is trapped but not finished. Sauron is watching, and his eye is searching, always searching. Frodo still has to walk into Mordor. Sam still has to keep him on his feet. Gollum still has his own secret thoughts, some soft and sad, some sharp and hungry. Aragorn still has a road before him that will lead him to a place where only kings dare stand. Merry and Pippin still have more courage in them than even they yet know. But for tonight, you can rest. Close your eyes and picture the plains of Rohan after the rain, clean and bright in the morning sun. Nothing is finished. Everything is moving. We begin again with the riders of Rohan. The men of Rohan were not made in towers or in courts. They were made on the back of a horse, in tall grass, with the wind in their faces. Their lives were shaped by long rides, open skies, and the bond between rider and horse that is almost like the bond between two halves of the same heart. After the battle at Helm's Deep, after the long night and the long rain, and the clash of iron on stone and the screams in the dark, the riders move quietly among the fallen. Some of the fallen are friends. Some of the fallen are enemies. The men of Rohan are careful with both. A rider kneels beside a man who had stood on the wall next to him and had laughed in fear and in courage. The rider closes the man's eyes with 2 fingers. He does it gently. He whispers the man's name. He says, "You stood. You stood till morning. You did well." Then he covers that man's body with a cloak. A different rider crouches beside a creature from Saruman's army. He studies the face. The face is twisted and wrong, almost like a man's, but not a man's, almost like an orc's, but not an orc's. The skin is grey, the teeth are hard and sharp, the body is thick with muscle. The rider frowns. "What are these?" he asks in a quiet voice. Gimli answers, from not far away. "Trouble," he says. Legolas steps lightly over fallen shields and broken spears to join them. He kneels. He tilts his head. His fair elf hair has rain in it, tiny beads of water that have not yet dried. His eyes are clear. "These are Saruman's new breed," Legolas says softly. "They are made for war. They are made to obey. They do not fear the sun. They move in the day without pain. They are not natural." The rider looks up at Legolas with worry. "Can more of them be made?" he asks. Legolas says, "Yes." The rider's jaw tightens. "Then we are not finished," he whispers. Gimli says, very firmly, "No, we are not finished. But we are not dead either. That is important." Legolas smiles to himself. "A dwarven prayer," he says quietly. "It's not a prayer," Gimli grumbles. "It's just true." All around them, men are helping other men to their feet. Someone has a broken arm. Someone else has a bandage around his head. A boy And yes, some of them are still boys, not yet with full beards, faces still soft, eyes still too new. Is shaking quietly with his hands on his knees like he might be sick. A rider twice his age puts a steady hand on his back until his breathing slows and says, "Easy, easy, it's done. You did well." That is part of battle too. Not just swords and shields, the part after, the part where you remind each other you are still here and still real and still yourselves. King Theoden moves among his people. He does not rush. He does not tower over them. He does not shout. He speaks to each one like he would speak to a brother or a son or a friend. "You fought bravely," he tells them. "You were not broken. You did not run. I am proud of you." Some of the men cry when he tells them this. Quiet tears, not tears of fear, tears of release. They were afraid they had failed him. To be told, "You did not fail me," that is sometimes what keeps a heart from cracking. Aragorn watches Theoden. Aragorn is quiet. That happens a lot. People sometimes think Aragorn is all action, all motion, all blade and stride and command. But much of Aragorn is also watching. Much of Aragorn is seeing. He pays attention. When he looks at Theoden now, he is not only seeing a king, he is seeing hope that was almost killed and then brought back. Gandalf comes to stand beside Aragorn. For a while, they don't say anything. They stand together in calm silence. Gandalf rests both hands on his staff. The morning light catches in his white hair and white robes. If you looked at him from a distance, you might think he was made of mourning. At last, Aragorn speaks. "I have seen kings who love themselves," Aragorn says. "I have seen kings who love gold. I have seen kings who love power. But I have rarely seen a king who so clearly loves his people." Gandalf nods. "Yes," he says, "and that is why Saruman had to break him first. Saruman knew that if Theoden remembered who he was, Rohan would stand." Aragorn looks sideways at Gandalf. "You broke Saruman's hold," he says quietly. "Could you have done it sooner?" Gandalf looks out over the valley. Men are carrying water. Men are gathering arrows. Someone is collecting spears and piling them in neat stacks. Overhead, the clouds are thinning. "No," Gandalf says softly. "I could not. Not until Theoden himself reached for his sword. I could open the door. He had to walk through it." Aragorn lets out a slow breath. "He did," he says. Gandalf smiles a little. "Yes," he says. "He did." There is a deep comfort in that, a kind of quiet pride, a sense that even in a world with dark lords and monstrous armies, a mortal person with grey in his hair can still matter, can still make the dawn break. Now we leave Rohan for a moment and return to Isengard. Water is everywhere now. Isengard had been dry and cruel and red-lit. Isengard had been all stone and iron and furnaces and cages and chains. Isengard had been hot like a mouth laughing with burned teeth. Now it is wet. Cold river water roars through trenches and pits. The great wheels that once turned day and night are snapped or jammed. Broken ladders float. Half-finished spears bob in the current, spin slowly, and vanish into deep pools. The forges hissed and died. Smoke is not rising anymore. Steam does, for now, but not smoke. The water is washing. That matters. Water remembers what the land was before the cutting and the burning. Water pulls things back toward how they should be. Water says, "No, you do not get to scorch and chew and leave nothing." Water says, "I'm older than you." Treebeard stands in this flood. Water swirls around his knees, tree knees, which are also roots. His toes curl into the muddy bottom for balance. He is very, very still, but he is not resting. He is listening. Ents listen differently. An ordinary person listens with their ears. Ents listen with their whole bodies. They listen with their bark, with their sap, with the way water flows through their veins. Treebeard is listening to Isengard and asking it, "Are you hurt beyond mending? Can you heal? Can you grow again someday?" Even now, even after the rage, even after deciding to go to war and then carrying that decision out, Treebeard still thinks in terms of healing. That is who he is. That is what Ents are. Anger, yes. But anger for the sake of life, not for the sake of hurting. Merry and Pippin sit on a broken bit of wall that is now an island. Their feet are tucked up so they won't get wet. They are wrapped in great pieces of cloth that Treebeard gave them to keep them warm. Bits of something like woven moss, soft and springy and smelling like rain and leaves. Pippin is chewing. Pippin is very, very happy about this. Merry is chewing too, but with more caution because he is thinking while he eats. This is not unusual. Merry does that a lot. Pippin eats with his heart first and his head later. Merry eats with his head first and his heart mostly all the time. The food they are eating is not quite like anything they had at home in the Shire. It tastes green and clean and a little sweet and a little earthy, like chewing a handful of springtime and honey at the same time. It is Ent draught. It is what the Ents drink. It makes you feel awake and strong in a very calm way, as if your bones are remembering how to be part of the world instead of just something you carry around. Pippin swallows and sighs. "That," he says, "is excellent." Merry swallows. "Yes," he says. "Yes, it is." Pippin leans back on his hands and looks up. Above them is Saruman's tower, Orthanc. It rises up dark and smooth, like glassy black stone. Nothing grows on it. No moss, no vine, no bird sits there. It is too hard for anything living to take hold. "Do you think he's just up there?" Pippin asks softly. "In his tower, watching us?" Merry nods. "Probably," he says. "Do you think he's scared?" Pippin asks. Merry thinks about that. He watches the way the water moves. He watches the way Treebeard stands patient and tall. "I think he's angry," Merry says. "I think he thought no one could touch him. I think he thought he could do whatever he wanted and no one would stop him." Pippin nods. Pippin picks at the edge of the mossy wrap around his shoulders. "I don't like him," he says. "That's good," Merry says. "You're not supposed to." Pippin is quiet for a little while. The water keeps moving. You can still hear crashes and splashes in the distance as other Ents finish tearing down the last of the wallwork. "I keep thinking," Pippin says after a while, in a sleepy voice, "about food." Merry smiles. "Of course you do," he says softly. "No, not just now, food," Pippin says. "After. I keep thinking we're going to sit down again at a table in the Shire, and we're going to say, 'Remember that time we were carried through a battle by a walking tree?' And people are going to say, 'No.' And then we're going to have to prove it." Merry laughs quietly. "Pippin," he says, "if we ever get to tell this story at a table in the Shire, I will personally buy you all the mushrooms in Buckland." Pippin's eyes flutter half shut. "That," he mumbles, "is the best promise anyone has ever made to me in my entire life." Then he falls asleep. Merry looks at him and his face softens. Merry loves Pippin in the way cousins love each other when they've grown up tripping over the same doorsteps and stealing from the same pantry and getting scolded by the same aunts and laughing until they cry at the same jokes. Merry looks at Pippin and thinks, I have to get him home. I have to. I will do anything. I will walk to the ends of Middle-earth barefoot, if that's what it takes. Merry is not a warrior the way Aragorn is. Merry is not a wizard the way Gandalf is. Merry is not old and mighty the way Treebeard is. But Merry has that thought and means every single part of it. And that matters. That is its own kind of power. Treebeard turns then. His great shadow falls across them like a moving wall of leaves. How is the little one? Treebeard rumbles. Merry smiles a little. Sleeping, he says. Good, Treebeard says. Sleep grows things. Whom? Yes, even hobbits. Merry looks up. Treebeard, he asks. Yes, Merry, Treebeard says. Thank you, Merry says. Treebeard tilts his head. For what? He asks, puzzled and gentle. For everything, Merry says. Treebeard is quiet for a long moment. His eyes, which are deep and gleam like wet wood, soften a little more. Whom? Treebeard says at last. You are very welcome. Now we go back across Middle-earth to Frodo and Sam and Gollum. This path is smaller. It is quieter. It does not have great horns or shouts. It does not have trumpets. It does not have speeches or kings or war councils. It is just three shapes moving low across the land, keeping to shadows, keeping to cracks in old rock, keeping to gullies and ditches and thorny hedges where no large army would ever think to send a scout. Frodo walks in the middle. Sam walks behind. Gollum crawls ahead and sometimes sideways and sometimes up walls like a strange pale cat. Frodo is thinner than he was when he left the Shire. You can see it in the way his clothes hang on him now. His eyes are larger in his face. Some of that is from hunger. Some of that is from the weight of the ring. The ring is not heavy the way a stone is heavy. It does not pull at his neck like a lead weight, but it pulls at his thoughts. It pulls at his dreams. It whispers to him. It whispers promises. It whispers ideas. It whispers, you could fix everything if you only used me. Frodo does not answer those whispers out loud. He is afraid that if he speaks back to the ring, then that means it is already won. So he keeps quiet. But inside himself, he feels tired. He feels like he is slowly carrying a thunderstorm. Sam watches Frodo all the time. He watches Frodo when they walk. He watches Frodo when they stop. He watches Frodo when Frodo pretends to sleep. He watches Frodo when Frodo is really sleeping. Sam is always measuring. Is he all right? Is he worse than yesterday? Is he eating enough? Is he shaking? Is he pale? Is he sad? Is he angry for no reason? Is he slipping away inside? Sam does not say all of this out loud. Sam does not write it down anywhere. Sam just carries it. Sam carries Frodo the way he carries the pots and the rope and the blankets and the water skin. He just does it because it needs doing. Gollum creeps ahead. Gollum moves with a strange grace, like something that once knew how to walk like a person, but then forgot, and then taught itself how to walk all over again in the dark with no light and no help. Every motion looks like it might break him, and yet he never quite falls. Sometimes he hums. The humming is very soft and scratchy and broken, like a lullaby that has been dragged over rocks. Sometimes he whispers to himself about food. Nice fish, he mutters. We likes fish, raw and wiggling. Yes, yes, fat little fish. We will find fish for us, precious. We will. Sometimes he whispers about the ring. Precious is close, he hisses. We feels it, we smells it, we needs it, we must haves it, we hates them. Nasty hobbits, thieves. Then sometimes the other voice comes, softer, sadder, almost pleading. No, Gollum whispers back to himself. No, they are kind to us. They did not kill us. They could have killed us. They made us promise. We promised. We must be good. Smeagol promised. Then the first voice snarls, Smeagol is weak. And the second voice whispers, Smeagol is tired. Sam hears some of this. He frowns deeply. He whispers to Frodo, Mr. Frodo, I don't like him talking like that. I don't like the way he says, we. I don't like the way he looks at you. Frodo nods. He speaks softly, barely louder than the sound of the wind in the scrubby bushes. I know, he says, but I pity him, Sam. Sam makes a face. I don't, he says, honestly. Frodo smiles, just a little. You're honest, he says. Sam lifts his chin a tiny bit. I'm practical, he says. There's a difference. They keep walking. The land they're in now is not friendly. Once, long ago, this might have been a pleasant land. There are traces. Here and there you can see fallen stones in lines, like there was once a low wall or an old path built by someone who cared about making it easy for travelers. Here and there you find a well that is choked with weeds and mud, the stones around it cracked but still smooth from long ago hands. But now the land is mostly scrub and broken ground. The plants that grow here are tough and thorny and bitter. The air smells faintly sour, like smoke far away that never really goes away. The sky is often dim even at noon. The light feels thin. Everything here feels tired. They move at night when they can. Gollum says it is safer at night because the eye looks wider in the day. When Gollum says, the eye, Sam shivers. He doesn't like thinking about it. He doesn't like imagining some great burning eye in the sky searching the world. He doesn't like the idea that something that hates everything alive is still allowed to look. Some nights it is cold. The ground is hard. Frodo and Sam curl up close together to share warmth. Gollum sits a few feet away, hunched and coiled, his eyes open and gleaming in the dark. He never really sleeps. He just crouches, breathing his thin, rattly breaths, watching. Sam whispers, we should light a little fire, just a tiny one. Frodo shakes his head. No, he whispers, we can't risk it. If they see even a spark. I know, Sam mutters. I know. It just feels wrong without a bit of fire. It feels like we're out in the middle of nowhere, begging to catch our death. Frodo nods. He knows. He knows what Sam means. A fire isn't just heat. A fire is home. A fire is the center of a circle. A fire is a promise that for a little while you are not moving. No fire means you are always on your way and never arrived. Sam sighs. Do you remember, Sam whispers, the little kettle in Bag End? The black one with a dent in the side that never quite came out. Frodo smiles in the dark. Yes, he whispers. I remember. We'd sit by the fire, Sam whispers, and it would hum just a little right before it boiled. Not whistle, just hum. I liked that. I liked it too, Frodo says. They are quiet for a little while. Then Sam says, we're going back there. Frodo does not answer right away. Sam waits. Finally, Frodo says, very softly, I don't know, Sam. Sam swallows. The back of his throat feels tight. We're going back there, he repeats. Frodo turns his head on the cold ground and looks at Sam in the dark. Sam can't see Frodo's eyes. Not really, but he can feel that look. Sam, Frodo whispers, it might not be like that for me. You know that. Sam knows what he means. He hates it, but he knows. The ring hurts Frodo. It is already hurting him, and they are not even in Mordor yet. What happens when they get to Mordor? What happens when they stand in the heart of the fire where the ring was made? Will Frodo still be Frodo there? Will Frodo still be able to let go? Will Frodo still be able to breathe? Sam's voice goes rough. Then I'll carry you. Frodo lets out a tiny, helpless sound that is almost a laugh and almost a sob at the same time. Sam, he whispers, you can't carry me all the way into Mordor. Sam nods firmly in the dark. I can try, he says. Frodo closes his eyes. He feels cold and tired and loved all at once, and it hurts and heals at the same time. Sleep, Sam, he whispers. You first, Mr. Frodo, Sam whispers back. Frodo breathes, slowly, slowly. Finally, his breaths even out. Sam stays awake just a little longer, watching Gollum. Gollum is whispering to himself again. We can takes it, Gollum hisses under his breath. We can. While they sleeps, yes, we sneaks, we bites, we runs, we takes Precious back. Precious loves us. Precious is ours. Not theirs, never theirs. Then the other voice comes, soft and shaking. No, Gollum whispers to himself. No, 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 we promised. We promised on the Precious. We swore. We mustn't break the promise. The first voice growls, liar. The second voice whimpers, please. Sam's jaw tightens. He whispers so quietly that not even Gollum hears him. I'm watching you. Then, finally, Sam lets himself sleep too. Now we go back to Gandalf. Gandalf the White stands with Theoden and Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli in the light after the storm. The Valley of Helm's Deep is quiet now, as quiet as a place can be after a battle when you can still smell iron and fire and rain and fear. They gather in a sheltered place just inside the Hornburg, where there is still a roof and still a table and still a few unbroken chairs. A lantern burns. It is not very bright. It does not need to be. The light from the lantern flickers over their faces and makes little reflections in their eyes. On the table are maps. The maps are old. They show rivers and mountains and plains. They also show old borders, old keeps, old roads. Some of the roads no longer exist. Some of the keeps are now only ruins. But the maps remember them anyway. Theoden sits with his sword laid across his knees. He sits upright and proud. But every now and then, one of his hands curls over his ribs, like he is hiding a pain. He is old, and last night was long, and old bones ache after you swing a sword for hours in the rain. He will never say that out loud. He is a king. But his body says it anyway, quietly, in little motions. Aragorn stands, leaning over the table. He is pointing at something on the map with one long finger. His finger is scarred from old fights. His sleeve is still damp. His hair is still damp. He smells like rain and leather and sweat and iron. He smells like battle. Gimli is sitting on a low stool because dwarf legs get sore too, and Gimli is not embarrassed to rest them. His axe is at his feet. His beard is wet and tangled. There is a leaf stuck in it that he has not noticed yet. Legolas does not sit. Elves do not tire the same way. Elves can stand for hours and still look like they have been strolling gently through a garden. He stands with his arms loose at his sides, but his eyes are awake. He is listening to everything. Gandalf stands at the end of the table. He does not look tired, but there is a deep stillness in him. It is not exactly weariness. It is more like he is holding a great weight inside himself and will set it down later when it is safe. Theoden looks at Gandalf and says, "So, we survived the night. We lived to see the morning. What do we do with the day?" Gandalf nods slowly. "Yes," he says, "that is the question, and the answer is not simple." Theoden smiles, just a little. "Of course it is not," he says. "It never is, with you." Gandalf's eyes almost smile back. "No," he says softly. It never is. Aragorn taps the map. Saruman will not stop, he says. We broke one host, but he will raise another. His tower still stands. His hatred still stands. He will strike this land again if we leave him free. Gimli grunts. Then we don't leave him free, he says. We go there, knock on his door, pull him out by his beard, and be done with it. Legolas glances at Gimli. He does not have a beard, Legolas says lightly. Gimli waves a hand. Then we pull him out by whatever he does have, he mutters. Theoden's eyes warm again for a moment at that. The dwarf and the elf have learned to tease each other like old friends, and the sound of that teasing is a comfort to him. It is like listening to a hearth crackle when you've been out in the cold. Gandalf raises his hand slightly, and the room quiets. Saruman is wounded, Gandalf says, but Saruman is still dangerous. We will go to him. Yes, we will go to Isengard and we will speak to him. But that is not the end of it. Theoden leans forward. What else? He asks. Gandalf touches the map with one fingertip. Then he slides that fingertip east. East of Rohan. East of the river. East toward a black land drawn on the map like a wound. Mordor, Theoden says quietly. The word seems to make the lantern flame flicker. Yes, Gandalf says. Theoden's jaw tightens. I know that name, he says. I was a child when I first heard it. I heard it in whispers when grown men thought I was not listening. I heard it in old songs about a war I was told was finished. I never thought I would live to see that name mean something again. I did not want to. Gandalf nods, and his eyes are kind. None of us wanted to, he says. Theoden studies the map. So, he says, this is a bigger war than I thought. Yes, Gandalf says again, quietly. It is. Theoden breathes out. He closes his eyes for a moment. When he opens them, they are steady. Then Rohan will fight it, he says. Aragorn looks at Theoden. There is something like respect in his face. Deep, quiet, not loud and clapping, but steady. He says simply, you honor your people. Theoden turns to Aragorn. He studies Aragorn's face. And you, Theoden says slowly, are more than a wanderer in torn leathers and a reforged sword. Aragorn says nothing for a second. Then he answers softly, yes. Theoden nods. Good, he says. I'm glad to know it. He smiles a little. Just not yet, he adds. Aragorn actually huffs out a quiet breath that might be a laugh. No, he says. Not yet. Not here. Not today. Gandalf's eyes flick over to Aragorn then. He does not say anything. But in that look is a promise that things are moving. That some old waiting is ending. That the world is about to remember kings. Now we go back to Fangorn. Not to Isengard this time, but to the forest itself. You have seen Fangorn as angry. You have seen Fangorn as marching. But Fangorn is also gentle. Fangorn is also deep and soft and green. There are places in Fangorn where the air is warm and smells like old sunlight. There are places where the ground is springy and covered in low green growth that feels like the world's own blanket. There are places where water drips in a rhythm like breathing. Merry wakes up in one of these places. He blinks. He sits up slowly. His body is sore. His legs ache from running and being dragged and running again. His wrists ache from rope. But he is safe. He is not tied. He is wrapped in something that is soft and smells faintly of mint and something like pine. He looks over. Pippin is still asleep. Pippin's mouth is slightly open. Pippin's hair is a mess. Pippin looks like a very small bundle of laundry, someone stuffed into a corner. Merry smiles. Then he looks up. Treebeard is there. Treebeard is not sleeping. Treebeard is standing still, but when Treebeard stands still, it is like a guard on watch. His eyes are not closed. He is paying attention. Merry clears his throat softly. Treebeard. Treebeard turns his head. Slow. Always slow. Merry, he says kindly. Where are we? Merry asks in a whisper. In Fangorn, Treebeard answers. Deeper than you were before. Safer than you were before. Whom? Yes. Merry nods. Thank you, he says. Treebeard rumbles. Whom? You are polite, he says. I like that about you. Merry smiles a little again. Then his face turns thoughtful. Treebeard, he asks. Yes, Merry? Treebeard says. Will you tell me something? Merry asks. Not about Saruman, not about war. Something else. Something older. Treebeard leans in. His great bark brows lift. Older, he says, pleased. Whom? You are curious. That is good. Too many small folk are not curious. They run about and eat and sleep and never look up at the branches. Merry blushes a little, because he does in fact like running about and eating and sleeping. But he sits straighter. Please, he says. Treebeard nods. And when Treebeard nods, the whole world seems to nod with him. I will tell you a little, Treebeard says. A little, because little folk get sleepy quickly when I tell long stories. Merry's mouth twitches. We do not, he says. Treebeard's eyes almost smile. Yes, he says simply. You do, but that is all right. He settles himself, roots deepening into the earth. His voice gets lower and slower and softer, like wind moving across a wide, calm field. Once, Treebeard says, the world was mostly green. There were not so many houses. There were not so many roads. There were no furnaces burning under the mountains to make new creatures out of anger. There were great woods that went on and on and on until even an ent could walk for many days and never leave them. The rivers were clear. The mountains were high and white. The stars seemed closer. The elves sang more often, and their songs were longer. They had more time then. Merry listens, eyes wide. He tries not to blink too often, as if blinking might make the picture fade. Treebeard goes on. There were entwives then, he says quietly. Merry tilts his head. Entwives, he says softly. Treebeard's eyes warm and dim at the same time. It is a very old sadness. It is a sadness that is gentle and endless, like missing someone who has been gone so long that you can't remember the sound of their voice anymore, only the shape of the missing. Yes, Treebeard says. Entwives. Whom? We were not always alone. We Ents are shepherds of the trees. We watch the great woods. We keep the forests safe. We walk and we think and we listen and we help growing things to grow. That is our way. The Entwives, Treebeard says, had a different way. They loved gardens. They loved small things made tidy. They loved orchards in clean rows and little streams guided into soft curves. They loved flowers planted in patterns. They loved order. We loved wildness. They loved making. Whom? We were different, but we were not apart. We would go to them. They would come to us. We would talk. We would sing. We would be together. Treebeard grows quiet. Merry waits. After a while, Treebeard says, even more softly, then the great wars came. The lands changed. The rivers moved. The woods burned. Fields where the Entwives had gardens were scorched. Cities rose, and stone covered the places where they used to walk. We lost them. We lost them. Merry's chest hurts. I'm sorry, he whispers. Treebeard nods slowly. Whom? He says. Yes, we are sorry too. We still look for them. We still hope. We still listen. Sometimes we think perhaps we will hear them again. Sometimes we think we will never hear them again. It is a long sadness, but we do not forget them. Ever. Merry swallows. His eyes feel warm. He blinks them clear. He thinks of something then. It is a small thought, but it's important. Treebeard, Merry says. Yes, Merry, Treebeard says. Thank you for telling me, Merry whispers. Treebeard studies him. Then Treebeard bows his great head, just a little. Whom? He says very softly. You are welcome. Now we return to Frodo, Sam, and Gollum. They have come to a high, broken land where the rocks are sharp and the ground is cracked. Far ahead, in the distance, you can see a dark range of mountains. They rise up like black teeth. They're jagged and cruel and look like they were shoved up out of the world by anger instead of grown slowly by time. Those mountains are the borders of Mordor. Gollum crouches on a rock and points one long knobby finger. There, he hisses. There it is, the black land, Mordor. See, the smoke, the ash. Can you smell it? Yes, that is his land. That is where he looks from, always. Frodo stares. His face is pale. His eyes are tired. He looks small against the shape of the mountains. Smaller than small. A dot, a speck. Sam comes up beside him and looks too. He swallows hard. That, Sam says, looks absolutely awful, Mr. Frodo. Gollum lets out a strange little breath that might be a laugh. Yes, he whispers. Awful. Awful and worse than awful. He does not want to go there. No. But we must. Yes, we must. We promised. Frodo nods slowly. He can feel the ring around his neck. He can feel it like a hand. He can feel it like a chain. He can feel it like a whisper pressed to his ear. He can feel it like guilt and fear and anger and sadness, all mixed. He closes his eyes for a moment. In that moment, he remembers Bag End. He remembers the round green door with a bright yellow knob. He remembers the way the hallway ran straight back and then curved, and the way the floorboards creaked a tiny bit near the pantry. He remembers Gandalf standing hunched in the kitchen because the ceiling was too low for him. He remembers laughing, real laughing, easy laughing. He remembers warmth. For a second, it's almost too much. Sam sees his face change. Sam puts a hand, very gently, on Frodo's shoulder. I'm here, Sam says in a steady little voice. Frodo nods and opens his eyes again. All right, Frodo whispers. We're going in. Gollum shakes his head frantically. No, not here. Not the front. Not the Black Gate. Too many orcses. Too many eyes. Too many sharp, cruel things waiting. Yes, we cannot go that way. We will be caught, precious. We will be caught and taken. Sam frowns. So what do you suggest instead? He says. Gollum licks his lips. His eyes flick back and forth. He looks frightened. He looks sneaky. He looks hopeful. He looks guilty. He looks greedy. He looks like all of those things at once. We knows another way, he whispers. Secret way. Not watch the same. Not guarded the same. Up the winding stairs. Yes. Through the tunnel. Yes. A tunnel. A dark tunnel. We can take you there. We can. Sam narrows his eyes. That sounds just lovely, he mutters. Perfect. A secret tunnel. I'm sure nothing bad lives in it at all. Gollum's throat makes a sound. Something between a swallow and a purr and a whimper. Nothing we can't handle, he says softly. Sam does not like that answer even a little bit. But Frodo nods. Because the truth is, they do not have many choices left. They cannot turn back. They cannot go forward through the main gate. They must go somewhere. And Gollum's path is a path. Frodo says, in a quiet, steady voice, All right, Smeagol. Lead us. Gollum's eyes go wide. No one calls him that. No one says Smeagol in a gentle voice. For a second, something in his face melts, just a little. For a second, he looks less like a clawed creature and more like something that once might have been. A hobbit cousin, long, long ago, before the dark and the hunger and the whisper of the ring crawled into his heart. Yes, he breathes. Yes, we lead you. We will be good. We will be good, Smeagol. We will. Sam mutters under his breath. We'll see about that. Now we return, one more time, to Rohan. The day after the battle, after the lantern talks and the maps and the oaths, something quiet happens. The people of Rohan bury their dead. This is not a loud thing. There are no speeches shouted to the sky. There are no drums. There is just work and hands and care. The riders carry their fallen to a green slope just beyond the Hornburg. The grass there is soft. The earth there is deep and turns easily with a spade. The sun is gentle. They lay each man down with his sword or his spear beside him. They fold his hands on his chest. They smooth his hair. They straighten his cloak. They close his eyes if they have not already been closed. Then they cover him with earth. A low stone is placed at the head of each resting place. Sometimes a name is carved. Sometimes the man doing the carving does not know the name, so he carves a mark instead, a horse's head, or the sign of the rider's company, or just a straight line and a circle for the sun to mean, here is one of us. We will not forget you. Theoden stands and watches. He will not allow anyone to keep him away from this path. He stands even though his knees ache. He stands even though his back aches. He stands even though Gandalf quietly offered him a chair and he shook his head no. These are my people, Theoden says softly. I will stand with them while I still can stand. Gandalf bows his head in respect and does not argue again. Aragorn stands near Theoden. He stands not as a king, not as someone separate, but as a companion. He says nothing. He knows there are no good words for this. There is only presence. Legolas stands too. He looks out over the graves, and in his eyes there is a far-away sadness. Elves do not die the same way as men. Elves do not measure time in the same way. Elves can carry memories across ages like people carry rings or knives. Legolas is thinking of all the battles he has seen, all the songs that were sung after, all the voices that are now only echoes. Gimli stands with his hands on the top of his axe, leaning slightly, like the axe is a cane. Dwarves and men are not the same either, but dwarves understand stone, and they understand resting places in stone, and they understand work done with hands to honor the fallen. Gimli is deeply, deeply respectful now. He does not make a single joke. When the last stone is laid, Theoden steps forward. He kneels in the grass. He puts his hand flat on the earth. Rest, he whispers. Rest now. You bought this morning with your blood. I will not waste it. His voice does not shake. He wanted it to be that way. He wanted this promise to sound like stone. Then, and this is important, he stands again. He is old, and he stands again. Sometimes that is heroism. Now we go back to Aragorn. Aragorn walks a little way away from the camp, just for a moment, just for air, just for quiet. He stands on a rise and looks out at the horizon. The sky is wide, the land rolls. The wind moves the grass in long waves that shiver like water. He thinks of many things at once. He thinks of Frodo. He thinks of Frodo standing in Rivendell with big, uncertain eyes, saying, I will take the ring, though I do not know the way. He thinks of Frodo walking away from the fellowship at the river setting out alone because he thought that was the only way to protect everyone else. He thinks of Sam. He thinks of Sam's face when Sam said, "I'm going with him." Like it was not even a question. Like it was just the way the world worked. Aragorn smiles a little at that. There is a quiet, fierce kind of love in that memory that warms even his worry. He thinks of Merry and Pippin. He thinks of how small they looked, running in the chaos. He thinks of Pippin's bright, curious eyes and Merry's stubborn jaw. He thinks of their laughter on the road before any of this became heavy. He thinks, "I will see them again." He does not let himself think, I hope. He just decides, "I will." He thinks of Boromir. He thinks of Boromir kneeling with arrows in his chest, saying, "I would have followed you, my brother, my captain, my king." Aragorn closes his eyes for a moment. He feels that sentence in his bones. He feels it like a weight and like a gift. Boromir died with shame in his voice for trying to take the ring, but Boromir also died defending Merry and Pippin with his last breath. Aragorn will not let the world forget the second part. He will not. Then Aragorn thinks of something else. He thinks of a white city. He thinks of a city built on the side of a mountain, like a nest of stone, with walls like circles of pale light. He thinks of banners in the wind. He thinks of towers. He thinks of a throne that has been empty for a very long time. Gondor. He feels it calling him. Not like the ring calls Frodo. Not like a whisper in his head. It is not a hunger. It is not greed. It is a duty. It is a promise that has been waiting. He whispers to no one, soon. The wind moves his hair. He opens his eyes again. Then he turns and walks back to the camp, because people are mending saddles and rolling bandages, and they will need him to lift something heavy, or reassure someone, or make another plan. His private moment is over. He goes back to being what everyone else needs. That is another kind of heroism too. Now we go back, one last time tonight, to Sam. The sky is dim and low. The air tastes a little like ash. Frodo is sleeping, or something close to sleeping. Gollum is crouched a little way off, muttering to himself and stroking his own shoulders like he is cold inside his own skin. Sam sits with his knees pulled up, arms around his knees. He rests his chin on his arms. He looks up at the sky. He whispers very quietly so that no one but the sky can hear. If anyone is listening, I don't know if anyone is listening, please keep Mr. Frodo safe. He swallows. He keeps going, because once Sam starts, he keeps going. And if you can't, Sam whispers, then please keep me strong enough to do it instead. He nods once, to himself, like he and the sky have made a deal. Then he lies down next to Frodo. He does not sleep right away. He listens. He listens to Frodo breathing. He listens to Gollum muttering. He listens to the dry, scraping rustle of the wind moving over dead grass. And he thinks, one last time before sleep, we'll get there. We'll get there because we have to. He believes it. Not because the path is easy. Not because he thinks the world is fair. Not because he thinks they will be rescued. He believes it because there is no other choice that he will accept. Now for you, we will slow everything down. Picture the world as it is in this moment, all at once, in all the different corners where the story is happening. Picture Fangorn Forest at dusk, shafts of gold light slanting through leaves that hang like long, quiet curtains, soft pools of shadow under the roots, a deep smell of green things and damp bark. Picture Treebeard standing with half-lowered eyes, humming to himself in a voice so deep You feel it more than hear it, watching over two very small, very brave hobbits, sleeping side by side like dropped apples in moss. Picture Isengard, filled up like a giant bowl with clear river water, all the choking smoke gone, the fires drowned, the cruel machines overturned and silent. Picture Saruman high in his black tower, pacing, angry, trapped, afraid, listening to the slow, patient sound of Ents moving below, knowing now that even stone and iron can be answered by root and rain. Picture Helms, deep in the clean light after storm, men moving slowly, shoulders sore, hands bandaged, faces tired but alive. Picture King Theoden, standing straight again, looking like himself again, his eyes bright again. Picture Gimli sitting on a barrel, finally picking the leaf out of his beard and acting like he always knew it was there. Picture Legolas looking east, thinking in long miles. Picture Aragorn tightening the strap on his sword and deciding, quietly, yes, I will go where I am meant to go. Picture Gandalf the White standing alone at the edge of the deep, staff in hand, hair bright as a falling star, looking not only at today but also at tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. Wizards see further than the horizon. He is measuring what is coming. Picture Frodo and Sam asleep on hard ground, under a dark sky. No fire, no kettle, no pipe smoke, only each other for warmth. Picture Sam's hand still resting on Frodo's sleeve, even in sleep, as if guarding him there in the dark. Picture Gollum crouched like a question mark, eyes wide and shining, torn between hunger and love, torn between precious and promise, torn between what he was and what he has become. Picture too the land itself, all of it, breathing. The mountains stand, the rivers run, the plains wait for hoofbeats. The stones remember old battles and will remember this one too. The trees whisper to each other in slow voices that men cannot hear. And over everything, far in the east, above that black land that smells like ash and hate and long fire, there is the Eye. We will not go there tonight. Not all the way. Not yet. Instead, we will stay here, in this quieter place between battles, where the night is cool and the grass is damp and tired. People are finally lying down. Because yes, there are more battles coming. There are harder things coming. There are harder choices. There are darker tunnels. There are black gates and white cities and red fires and green fields and voices calling out across impossible distances, saying, hold fast, just a little longer. There will be tears. There will be fear. There will be songs. There will also be courage like you have already seen tonight. Not loud courage, not showy courage, but the kind that looks like, I will stand. I will carry you. I will keep going. I will not let the dark have you. That kind of courage is already awake in this world. It is awake in hobbits. It is awake in men. It is awake in dwarves and elves. It is awake in Ents. It is awake in wizards. It is awake in you. So now, let yourself rest. You have walked with them a long way. You have run across the plains with Aragorn, Legolas and Gimli. You have ridden on Treebeard's shoulders through the crashing of angry water. You have stood in the rain on the wall at Helm's Deep, while the night seemed like it would never end. You have crouched in the dark with Frodo and Sam and heard Gollum whisper to himself in two voices. You have watched a king wake up inside his own body. You have watched a forest decide it has had enough. That is a lot for one night. You can stop here. Close your eyes. Feel the ground under you, steady and patient, like Treebeard's hand. Feel the soft brush of a borrowed cloak around your shoulders. like the moss-woven wraps Merry and Pippin are using, still warm from safety and kindness. Hear, in your mind, the slow Ent voice humming far away. Hear the low thunder rumble of it, whom, whom. Hear the soft, stubborn voice of Sam saying, "We'll get there, because we have to." Hear Aragorn's quiet promise to himself, "Soon." Hear Gandalf's staff tapping once on the floor of a golden hall and washing the poison away. Rise. You are safe right now. You are allowed to rest. The story will keep going, yes. The war will keep moving, yes. Dawn will come again and carry everyone forward, whether they think they're ready or not. But you don't have to follow them any farther tonight. You can let your breathing slow. You can let your shoulders drop. You can let your thoughts drift like leaves on calm water, carried somewhere gentle. In this moment, the darkness is not winning. In this moment, hope is still awake. In this moment, all across Middle-earth, people who love each other are still holding on to each other. And that is enough for now. Lay down. Close your eyes. Sleep under the watch of tall trees and starlight, and dream of green hills and clear rivers and morning through round windows. Rest well. We will walk with them again another night.